You are now listening to an exclusive celebrity guest star interview with none other than the Mr. Saturday Night.
Hello.
Good evening, Sue. Thank you so much. I want to thank you and welcome you as our celebrity guest star to the program this evening. You are an internationally, I've already briefed the audience. You're an internationally renowned fragrance expert, CEO of Scenterprises, of Find Your Signature Scent. You have a fascinating background, and I have so many questions. So welcome again, and thanks for spending some time with us this evening.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be with you, and look forward to sharing my stories with you. And go ahead, shoot, and answer any question you may.
Well, I'm going to take you way, 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 way back because you were really young. You originally from South Africa, and you moved here.
Yeah.
You moved here when you were how old?
Well, I moved here when I was not in my teens. I was in my early 20s, actually. And I came here because my brother was living here. And after I had wanted to be in theater, I went to London to study at RADA, Royal Academy of Dramatic Art, and they only had about 10 or 15 spots, and I didn't get in because they didn't like the people from South Africa and the politics. So I came to see my brother, and I've stayed here ever since.
Oh, no kidding. Always in New York? Is that where you've always lived? Okay, all right.
Always in Manhattan, yes.
So take me through the teen years. I mean, how did you find yourself in this industry? And I'll get into some of the major corporations and the fascinating background, of course, that you have. But take me again. So you were in London, theater, came to back to the States, and then what?
Well, actually, before that, I was 10 years old when I was in my first theatrical play in Johannesburg, South Africa, and that's what got me the acting bug, and I was acting and singing, and that's when I decided after going to college that I would want to go to London, and that's why I went to London, and then, of course, that didn't work out, so I came to New York, and I went to see an immigration attorney, and he said, "What do you do?" And I said, "Well, I'm a singer and an actress." And he stopped me. He said, "Forget that. We have 20,000 out-of-work singers. We don't need another one." So he said, "What else do you do?" And my mother, who is an amazing artist and calligraphist and musician from South Africa, had always said to me, "Sue, if you're going to be in theater, have something proper and positive to fall back on." So I'd actually done a business and a secretarial course in South Africa. So I said to the immigration attorney, well, I had done a business and secretarial course, and he stopped me and said, "Well, were you any good?" And by the way he asked me the question, I knew that was my ticket into America. So I said, yes. And he said, "Well, I'll hire you because I like your accent. I like how you look and you sound, and you could be a very good asset in my business." And he said, "I will process your green card." And so that's what I did. I worked with him for a year. At night, I'd go singing and acting just to keep my the creative juices going. And at the end of the year, when I got my green card, I went to a headhunter, and he said, well, I told him what I had done. I'd been singing and acting during the year, and I went on 3 job offers. The first was to be in banking. I said, no, that's not for me. Yeah. The second was to work in fashion. At the time, I didn't think I knew anything about fashion because we were so fashion backwards in South Africa, so I didn't really know about fashion. But that's changed right now. I'm a fashionista. But the third job offer was to work at Elizabeth Arden. And they loved the fact that I could stand up in front of people and speak. And so as a result of my performing, I got the job at Elizabeth Arden as National Training Director. And I had to learn all about fragrance on the job. And that's what I did. I had to go and study fragrance. I worked with a lot of the fragrance houses to understand the magic and the sort of the whole idea and the concentration and the absolute way of how fragrances are formulated. And so eventually I went on the road as National Training Director, and I was able to stand up and really talk about fragrance in a very authentic way and utilize my mom's ability for fragrance and music and all those creative things that I was able to include in the fragrance classes so that when people were motivated by fragrance and what I had taught them, they went back into the stores and they sold fragrance, and the fragrances, the sales went sky high. So it was really a compilation of everything: my theatrical background, my love of music and art and theater and creativity, and my performance skills. And that's what led me to create basically custom fragrances and be in the theatrical world of fragrance.
I think if I were hiring a training director for a fragrance company, everything, all of those skills you just said, you would have checked every one of those, not only checked every one of those boxes, but really, truly, that makes you so uniquely qualified for that role. There's some people that have one or two of those things, or they have these two of those things, but not all of them like you.
Well, I thank you so much for that. I think what makes me different is that fact that, number one, yes, I can stand up in front of people and speak. But, fragrance is such an art form, and people don't understand fragrance. I always say that fragrance is our inner accessory, and our clothing and who we are is our outer accessory. And in order to understand fragrance, you have to understand the creativity, the fact that it's art and science. And it's the most powerful, invisible accessory. It's the one accessory that when people come close to you and they say, "Oh, you smell so good," it makes you feel confident. It makes you feel sensual. It gives you some positivity. And it's an amazing attribute to have a fragrance that really speaks to you. And I always say that, you can walk down the street and you can smell something on somebody else. And if you then find out what that fragrance is, but it doesn't suit your body chemistry, no matter how wonderful it is, it won't suit you. So we all have our own DNA. We all have our own looks and our own style. And it's really important that a fragrance that you love reflects who you are. And so it can help you with confidence and positivity, and can help you really even in business. When you feel confident and you feel, great and positive, you reflect a certain demeanor, and people gravitate towards you for that.
I will ask some very basic questions because I'm a guy.
Yeah.
But I love learning about this. It's fascinating to me. And by the way, a word you used earlier, I think it was magic, and quite frankly, it can be. So is this going to be two different conversations, sort of one for men, one for women?
No, absolutely not. In fact, I'm so glad you asked that, because people think that perfume is for women and cologne is for men. But in fact, fragrance can really help a man feel confident and sexy and sensual and positive, as it can with women. And the only difference between the words perfume and fragrance, well, perfume and cologne and everything in between, is the amount of concentration of essential oils. So perfume is the strongest, most concentrated. And then the more you dilute it with water and alcohol, you get eau de parfum, eau de cologne, eau de toilette, and then finally cologne. Cologne is the lightest form. And the reason that it was such a light form is men used to like to wear it after they've shaved and after they've sort of doused their face with anti-shaving, the shaving cream and so the cologne.
Oh, I hope we haven't. There you are. I'm sorry. I thought we lost you for a second. We're good.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Did you hear what I said?
No. Could you repeat the last sentence?
Sure. So the difference between perfume and cologne is the concentration. In other words, perfume is the most concentrated, and it has the most essential oils. And the more you dilute it with water and alcohol, it becomes eau de parfum, eau de toilette, eau de cologne, and the last one is the cologne. It's the lightest form. And the reason people loved it so much is, well, it really... It acts as an astringent. After a man has shaved and when he wants to give himself that bracing, tingling sensation, he would put on aftershave or cologne, and that would be that sort of last final accessory that he would wear in his grooming regime and his ritual.
Do people wear? I'm guessing the answer is yes, and I'll look silly for even asking, but I want to know. I'm guessing that someone would have different perfumes or different colognes for different occasions. Is that a fair question?
Absolutely. Typically, it also depends on, where you're going and on the seasons. And if you want something very elegant and sophisticated, let's say you're going to the theater or the opera or the ballet or whatever, you would wear something that reflects the outfit that you would wear. If you're going to a great sporting event, you're going to the Super Bowl, you're going to, on a picnic, you might wear something a little bit more casual. So definitely you can have different fragrances for different occasions. And if you have a signature that you love, that you cannot ever live without, that's fine too.
I just find for a lot of men that just, don't have the benefit of your knowledge or listening to this conversation, they just may have grabbed something and stuck with it for like a long time for no particular good reason. All right, so you now find yourself as vice president of Tiffany for their 150th anniversary. Tell me about that.
Yeah. Well, when I started, I was at Elizabeth Arden for 6 years in product development, or training, product development, marketing. And then Lancôme hired me as marketing director for fragrance and men's skincare, and I was there for 4 years. And then, wouldn't you know, I got a call one day from Frank Shields, that's Brooke Shields' father. He was a headhunter. And he said, Sue, we've been watching you, we've been looking at your career, and we're looking for an executive vice president or vice president at the time for a major iconic brand. Please come in for an interview. So I did, and I was so excited when I heard that it was for Tiffany. Can you believe, growing up in South Africa, that one day I would be executive vice president for Tiffany in New York City?
Unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. And they loved the fact that I had all the background, the training, the marketing, the product development, the speaking, the branding. And, to have the idea to really create an iconic fragrance, or should I say, to create a fragrance for an iconic brand, was something so exciting. And when they finally gave me the position, my boss at the time handed me 2 submissions that they had been working on for about a year or so. And I was so excited. I couldn't wait to get out of the elevator and try these fragrances. And you know what happened? I stopped dead in my tracks. I said, oh my goodness, these do not smell the way Tiffany should smell. So because I'd learned so much about fragrance, I knew what would sort of bespeak something elegant and high quality and Tiffany and luxury and so on. And these 2 were just mediocre kind of fragrances. And I called my boss the next 4 days because I agonized about these fragrances. And I said, well, I'm starting in 2 weeks. What do I do?
You don't want to call their baby ugly. You know what
exactly.
I mean?
but I the one thing that I think is very important is to really take the chance and to be as authentic as possible. And so during those 4 or 5 days, I contacted friends of mine who I really respected in the industry, a president of this and the marketing of that and a branding person, people who really knew what was going on in the industry. And I didn't tell them what it was for. I said, but this is a very new project that I'm working on, luxury, quality, and so on. And all 5 of them said the same thing. Oh, this is cheap. This is very commercial. Sue, what is this? You shouldn't be working on this. So I called the boss and I said to her, I'd like to come in. She said, but Sue, you're starting in a week or 2. I said, but this is very important. And I said to her at the time, look, I know you've been working on this for a long time. You spend a lot of money on the quality and just on the whole marketing and product development. But I don't think that these reflect the brand of Tiffany. And she said, well, let's go down. To her credit, she said, let's go down to the chairman. And we did. And he said, well, we hired her. Let her fix it. When she starts, she'll be able to take her helm and work on it, which is what I did. And then when I started, we actually formed a joint venture with Chanel. And the president and the owner of Chanel agreed that those submissions were not appropriate because we were doing a joint venture. And so he said, Sue, I want you to go to Paris and work with our chief perfumer, Jacques Poge, to really create this fragrance. And so that's what I did, and it was the most exciting thing in my life.
Unbelievable. Oh, what a fascinating story. So other companies, did they come before or after? I'm looking at my notes. Avon, Lancaster, Diane von Furstenberg. Was that after?
Yes. So what happened is after I left Tiffany, after I created Tiffany and worked with Tiffany and introduced the Tiffany fragrance for men, I was with child, and I left my company, and I really felt that I'd had a few complications medically, and I said, well, this is really important. So I had to really take care of myself, but I didn't want to stop working. And so I had my child, and I basically started my own company, which I called Scenterprises, Scent and Enterprises. And so by this stage, I'd learned a lot and met a lot of people, and so companies started to hire me. The president of Avon at the time was a friend of mine, and she contacted me. She said, Sue, we'd like to have your expertise to come and really build our fragrance business. So that was great. I was at Avon for about 5 years in different consulting capacities, working on a candle line, a home fragrance line, working with Diane von Furstenberg, who I met recently again, who was just so great. And then a company called Royal Brands hired me to develop the Burberry fragrance. And then Lancaster, and all these consulting gigs came in. It was wonderful. And then you know what happened? Guess what? The economy crashed.
Oh, no.
In 2008.
Oh, in 2008, right. I thought we're not even in COVID yet. Okay, right.
No. So,
okay.
So COVID, I mean, the economy crashed, and of course, all the consulting dried up. By that stage, I'd learned so much about fragrance. And, originally coming from South Africa, I knew what the term bespoke meant. A lot of Americans don't know what bespoke means, which is really customization. It's a custom, and it started with clothing. The time when Burberry started with their, raincoat, it was all bespoke, which means custom tailored to really reflect the person or the individual. And so I said, well, why not think about custom bespoke fragrances for individuals? And so I started to work with a perfumer and with fragrance houses, and I created these 18 different fragrances. And people said, Sue, what are you doing? Tupperware parties for perfume? And they laughed and they sort of snickered and so on. Well, guess what? The custom fragrance aspect started to grow. It became such a trend. And it was amazing. And I basically started from my apartment. And then I opened up a boutique downtown, which I called the Centarium.
Nice.
And people like Jamie Foxx found me, and Katie Holmes and Zendaya. And it was great. And I was doing corporate events and team building events, all with fragrance. And then guess what happened?
Oh, no. I know.
COVID came.
Oh, God.
So, being ever resilient and resourceful, I had to readjust. So the 3 R's, resilient, resourceful, and readjust. And this time I had to close down my boutique, and I wrote my book called The Power of Perfume. And that took about a year to write, and so there was no real business. I did try a pop-up boutique on the Upper East Side that was open just by appointment because, of course, COVID, people had to really be careful with their wearing masks and so on. And I wrote my book called The Power of Perfume. And then NBC wanted to do a story about the book. And the day before the interview, they called me and they said, Sue, do you think you could help somebody who's had COVID, anosmia, regain her sense of smell? Now, one of the problems with COVID and the disorders that happened as a result of COVID was loss of smell, which is called anosmia. Mm-hmm. And because smell and taste are so interconnected, if you lose your sense of smell, you lose your sense of taste. So this woman had not been able to smell for 15 months. And she came to the boutique, the pop-up store, and I took her on a scent healing journey. And I showed her one fragrance. She smelled it. Nope. second one, nope, third. We went around the whole sort of fragrance journey. And when she came upon the 14th fragrance, she suddenly said, I smell something. And she started to cry. Can you believe after 15 months of not being able to smell or taste, she was able to smell something? And the response and her emotions were so heart-wrenching because suddenly she realized that she could actually smell again, and it was just very powerful. And so as a result of that, the story went viral. I had so many different outlets contact me because now people around the country heard and saw the NBC tape, and they contacted me to see if I could help them. And I've helped about 250 people regain their sense of smell. So it's a fascinating journey. Through my passion and my resilience and my love of fragrance, I've been able to help so many people explore and regain their sense of smell and to understand the power of it.
And you're so you say resourceful, great word, and you're so adaptable. You know, you're faced with challenges and you find your way around the brick wall. When of those 250 people, were there any similarities between fragrances, or is it just everyone's different?
Everyone's really different. Of the 250, there were only 3 people that I really couldn't help, and I tried. What happened was different people were able to regain their sense of smell to a certain percentage. Some completely 100%, some about 85%, some 75%, and some at 50%. Everybody had some kind of recognition of fragrance and were able to smell. There were 3 people that I helped or tried to help. One guy, unfortunately, had brain cancer, and he had radiation. So literally, when he had the radiation, his brain cells sadly were fried, and he couldn't smell anything. And that happened way before COVID. That was something that happened 15 years ago, and he had heard about me, and he came to meet with me. Actually, I came to meet with him in Florida. So that didn't work out. And then one guy came, I call him Mr. Macho. Mm-hmm. He came in sort of, very big macho guys with the cut-off T-shirt with the muscles bulging, and he sat down and he said, well, miss, can you help me? This is what I want. I want to smell again. And he wasn't able to concentrate. He wasn't able to connect his olfactory with the limbic system. He just couldn't make that connection. And he was challenging me, and it was just, I knew that it was not going to work because he didn't really want to do the work. And as I said to all my clients, I want you to smell with your brain. I want you to concentrate. Just forget everything else around. Forget all the noise. Just concentrate. Try and smell. And he wouldn't do it. He wanted me to wave a magic wand. And then the third couple came in, and such a cute couple. He was so divine, and she was so beautiful. And every time I asked him to smell something, he kept on looking at her to get her recognition, to get her, acquiescence and her approval. And I said, I want you to please focus and concentrate on this. Well, he couldn't, so that didn't work. But everybody else was able to really regain their sense of smell to some kind of level. Oh,
that's absolutely fascinating. So you're now in, and you did that all through. And by the way, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think actually one of our sons sort of has a long, I think they call it long COVID, right? Some symptoms.
Yeah.
And so some people are still, I guess, faced with that challenge. You have so many, between your website, you have so many services. All of them are incredibly unique. You're a visionary. Let's start, I guess, with custom fragrances. As you mentioned, you've done them for a number of celebrities. You do them for groups, for events. Walk me through that process. I walk in and I'm interested. What happens next?
So I give you a scent personality quiz to start with. Now, people can take that online before they meet with me. If you go to SuePhillips.com to the website and you scroll down to see, take the quiz. What that does, and then of course you take it with me when I meet with you in person. What that does, it really helps relate to you about your scent personality, whether you ultimately are casual, if you like fresh fragrances. If you're sophisticated, you might like floral or woodsy. If you're outdoors, if you're an outdoor guy who likes hiking and fishing, you might like, sort of more natural, earthy fragrances. And if you sort of are a little bit more sensual and you want something sexy and sophisticated, you'll take something in the spicy category. So what it does is it helps you determine what your scent personality is. And it's so accurate. I've actually worked with a psychologist on this scent quiz, and I would say it's almost 100% accurate, because when people come in and they take the scent quiz, it absolutely reflects what they like. So women mostly like florals, men like mostly woodsy and spicy. And it's fascinating. So once we go through the scent quiz, I then take you through a fragrance journey. I created 18 different perfumes, and they span the entire olfactive palette: fresh, floral, woodsy, spicy, musks, amber, beautiful, different florals, different kind of spicy amber fragrances. And then you go through all 18. You select the 3 or 4 that you love. And it's amazing when you select, it's a little daunting to start with. Oh my goodness, how am I going to understand? What am I going to do with these 18 scents? How do I evaluate them? But it's fascinating how people, when they really connect with it and they really concentrate, they're able to define what they like. So somebody says, well, I love this, but this seems more like for a candle, or this seems more for outdoors, and this seems more for my brother. But then they start to go through it and really refine what they like. And ultimately, they come up with 3 or 4 blends that really speaks of them. And so they get to name their fragrance. They get to choose the different atomizers or bottles that we have. And then they leave at the end of the hour or hour and a half with their own custom perfume. What's been so fascinating is seeing how this resonates with people. I've had people who came in who didn't have a clue about what they wanted. And by the time they leave, they are in tears with such joy. They say, oh my God, this is me. This is amazing. This makes me feel so this, or it reminds me of when I was that, or this reminds me of when I was, going through a beautiful time, or whatever it was. And you know why? Fragrance and memory are so connected. And that is why it's our most powerful sense, because of the connection between the limbic system in the brain and the olfactory. And it's just fascinating. Also, it's connected to, taste. And that's why during COVID, when people lost their sense of smell and taste, it was devastating for them. They couldn't go out, they couldn't socialize, they couldn't smell or taste anything. So I'm just so happy and thrilled that I've been able to make a difference in so many people's lives through fragrance.
Over the last, I'll just say 10 years, do you find that time changes a lot of things? Does it change fragrance, people's preferences? Is that a thing?
It really does. It's so interesting, because I tell people the thing that I smell most on the streets of New York City is oud, which is a woodsy fragrance, and marijuana. Everywhere I go, I smell marijuana, and it drives me nuts.
What an awful smell, too, to be honest.
It's so awful. It's so awful. And, I carry my fragrance with me, and when I smell it, I just spray it in the air, because I can't stand the smell of marijuana. So I'm the perfume lady who sprays the smell of marijuana away.
Someone in chat wants to know, maybe they had heard it. Is pheromones, is that an ingredient? Is that is that a new preference? Is it an ingredient? What is it?
Okay, so pheromones actually really respond to, it's a substance really produced by animals, believe it or not. And especially in mammals or insects. And what it does is, when the pheromones are emitted into the air, it affects the behavior or physiology of others in the species. So pheromone is either secreted or it's excreted. It's a chemical factor that mostly comes from animals. And when people say, oh, my pheromones basically are from animals. And yes, it does affect them sexually and sensually. And so a lot of people think that, when you're a human being, you emit pheromones. And it's called the sex pheromone. But typically, research has been done, and the pheromones don't come from human beings; they come mostly from animals. But they talk about, the sexual triggers based on pheromones. So it's basically from animals, and that is how animals mate, through the pheromones. That's how they smell each other, and that's how they sort of get to procreate and so on. With human beings, it's different. We do have our own body chemistry, and we do have our own sort of like pheromones, but it's really not pheromones from human beings.
So do you put is that an ingredient in a perfume or no?
Well, there is a fragrance actually called pheromones, which are supposedly able to reflect pheromones from animals, but it's just a great marketing term. It's just a great, it's like, be attractive to, like animals and use your pheromones. But actually, people do have their own body chemistry. And something about your body chemistry, it's also everything to do with what you eat. It's, your own body chemistry, how many hormones you have, whether you're very oily or if you're very dry. Different aspects of your body can really result in different attractive aspects. And I will tell you that I once had a crush on somebody from a distance, and when we finally got together, the body chemistry was so awful that was it. I was done. I was done.
So given the process, you come in, it's a journey, as you say.
Yes.
This is not necessarily a gift for someone. If you give someone a gift, I'm guessing it's, well, no, I mean, in other words, I wouldn't be choosing a particular fragrance for someone else, would I?
No, but what you could do is you could get them a gift certificate,
exactly.
And they could come in, or you could come in, or the two of you could, when people contact me, they say they want to make a fragrance for their loved one. And I always say, well, it would really be great if you came in together, because this way, you and her, the two of you could really find something that appeals to you both. Because if one of the couple loves it and the other one doesn't, then obviously it's not going to be a happy gift. But to really do something together, it makes a lovely, lovely, memorable event. And every time you wear the fragrance, you'll think of this great gift and your loved one who got it for you, and so on. So, yes, it can be a very good gift.
On average, how long does that process take from walking in to walking out?
It's about an hour and a half.
Oh, that's okay.
Because, it's an hour to an hour and a half, depending on how many questions they have. We start with the scent personality quiz. That takes about 5 minutes. We then go through the fragrance journey. That takes about 45 minutes. And then I create the fragrance. So, and a lot of questions. And I really love to make it a very interactive, fun, individualized appointment. And so it's always by appointment, so that nobody can just walk in and destroy the ambiance. It's, if people book an appointment, they book it, and then that's their time to really understand the magic and the mystery of fragrance with me.
You have even taken that on the road. You have had a perfume bar at the Oscars and the Grammys, yes?
Yes. That was so much fun because I was able to meet so many celebrities. Oh my gosh. Marsha Gay Harden, Oba Babatunde, the fabulous guy who was in Sex and the City, I think his name was Jason. So many top celebrities, and Susan Sarandon. And celebrities are just as intrigued as in fragrance as we are. Not everybody has their own fragrance, and they're also very excited to learn about fragrance. Not too many people know about fragrance other than what they smell in the stores, and sometimes they say, "Ooh, I don't like it, it smells cheap and chemical," and they walk away. But what I try and do is really explain the beauty and the artistry of fragrance so that they understand what goes into it. It's people think that fragrance is just boom, boom, boom. You recreate 3 or 4 ingredients and you have a magical formula. No, it takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of studying, a lot of understanding the art and the science. In other words, what fragrance do you want to try and achieve? But then how do you achieve it? That's the science. The artistry is knowing what you want. Oh, I want to create a magical fragrance that has got florals on the top note and it drives down the sensual woodsy note. Well, there's certain scientific ways of doing that, and people don't understand that.
And I have to imagine, so really, let's be honest, you're also a chemist. Right? I mean, you have to take all these magical quality ingredients and be able to put them together and know what affects what. How does it affect it? How will it boggles my mind. It really does.
Well, it's really like being a chef. You have to understand what ingredients go well together. If you're a chef and you want to create this wonderful dish, you have to know what the different flavors are, how they're going to mix with each other, what the sort of savory notes are, what the sweet notes are, what the bitter notes are, and maybe that's bad, but you might want a little bit of that. So understanding, those 5, sweet, sour, salty, bitter, and umami, which you find in sushi, you have to understand. You have to be a gastronomic cook or understand the science of gastronomy.
I know what you mean.
I flummoxed myself. A culinary art. But that's another thing that we do. I really collaborate with a lot with chefs, and we do scent dinners. And those are so much fun because so many corporations, when they do team building or corporate events, they take the team out for dinner. And in New York, we call them chicken dinners because they're just so boring and they're so banal. But, doing a scent dinner is so much fun because it, again, reflects the correlation between scent and taste. And so I'm sure you've heard of scent and wine pairing, yes, or chocolate and wine pairing. Well, scent you can pair with a dinner, and I call it sip, sniff, and savor. So every course has a flavor, fragrance, and wine component. And you sip the wine, you sniff the matching fragrance, and then you savor the food. And so each course has a flavor, fragrance, and wine component. And at the end, I create a fragrance based on all the ingredients we've tried. Maybe the first course is a salad with a citrus dressing. Maybe the second course is something woodsy with a salmon and a Chardonnay. And the third course could be a spicy dish with lamb and spicy notes, and then a lovely Cabernet Sauvignon. And then the dessert could be something fruity with chocolate and vanilla, and my chocolate and vanilla fragrance. And at the end, I create a fragrance for everybody based on all the ingredients that I tried. So it's a fun, memorable event, and people learn so much. They start to think about the correlation of smell and taste. And it's just a lovely experience.
It truly is something that, until you just said that, I think most people just take for granted. You don't even think about it. And you should, because to hear you say that, sign me up. That sounds so fascinating. You obviously knowledgeable. You've been called upon as an in-demand speaker for Fortune 500 corporations have hired your expertise for team building, as you said, and some brand development. AOL, Google, Pinterest, Merrill Lynch, MetLife, Wells Fargo, Tubi TV, TikTok. List goes on and on. Just to name a few. And then, of course, private individuals also, as you just mentioned, the dinner, wonderful idea. Bridal showers, engagement parties, weddings, corporate holiday parties, and even customized celebrations. What an amazing career you have, and how you have recognized all of the ways that people can enjoy and learn and benefit from this. Kudos to you.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Well, I'm I want to really take my brand and I want to expand on it. And I think the time is right to try and get it into more of a global distribution. And so I'm working with some people right now to literally develop a Sue Phillips brand that we're going to be launching at the end, towards the end of the year. And this will really be a culmination of my life's work, and it'll be fun, and I'll finally be able to also create a foundation for things that really resonate with me. My mom, unfortunately, had dementia and Alzheimer's, so I do a lot of work for Alzheimer's Foundation to understand memory and emotion, and then to do something and of course all with fragrance, to really create a foundation to really help people who've had dementia or Alzheimer's, who have had COVID and anosmia, to really, through the power of fragrance, help generate and build awareness of these disorders, and through the magic and the power of fragrance. And that's really my next iteration of what I want to do.
You are extremely active and knowledgeable, but active on social media is where I was going. So I'm looking in chat, and someone said, "Wow, what a clinic on fragrance, and what a fascinating person of so many incredible life experiences. Thank you, Sue Phillips, and thank you, Mr. Saturday Night." So everyone is benefiting, and of course, this will clips of this will be on the radio program, and then it will live on our YouTube and social media sites. I will give you a link. I will have all of the links that are relevant to you. How do they find you? What is your YouTube? What is your Facebook, et cetera, et cetera. One other thing I found fascinating as I did my due diligence. Expert witness.
Oh, so that is so interesting. People don't know what an expert witness is, except sometimes you hear on TV, these newscasters find somebody and say, well, we called an expert witness on such and such a judicial thing. I had no idea what an expert witness was until I got a call about 10 years ago from a lawyer who said, we're looking to have somebody opine on a distribution infringement case in fragrance. Trademark, copyright infringement. And they said, do you know anything about this? Well, of course, at that time, I didn't know anything about being an expert witness, but, with all the companies that I'd worked with, Tiffany and Burberry and Fish McAvoy and Avon, we talk about brand, we talk about the trademark, we talk about the copyright. So all those things are innate in a brand for a company. And so they asked me if I would opine on this, and I got the gig. And it was fascinating. So now I get called upon, because I've been in the fragrance world so long, to be an expert witness and to really either create an expert witness report or to appear in a court case to help understand and to really, whether it's for the plaintiff or the defendant, to really help decide the case. And I will tell you that I have appeared on some very high-level celebrity cases whose trademark was infringed upon, whose copyright was infringed upon, and we won the case. So it's really fascinating that even in the commercial world of fragrance, you have to have a business acumen to understand how a trademark or copyright infringement is going to affect the brand. If you're a high-level quality luxury brand, and you're in high-quality retail distribution, you don't want to see your brand in a Target or a Walmart, because that's not the branding positioning. So when those companies see their brand in a distribution channel that is not commensurate with the branding, then there's this law case, there's suing, there's all this, and then they have to call somebody in who understands marketing, branding, positioning, and so on. So it's been fascinating that I am called several times to be an expert witness.
Without, and maybe that was just a great example, but without naming names, can you give us a quick celebrity example? Without naming names.
A very big brand was, the first name is Jay. That's all I'll tell you.
Okay, fair enough.
You figure it out.
I may have just, but okay, go ahead.
Well, what's interesting is, also...
I'm sorry, was that a he or a she?
You're pushing the limits.
I know. I'll shut up. Go ahead.
No, it's only because some of these things are really confident. But this has been, I would never say anything if I was working on a case right now. But this was a few years ago, so it's already in the public domain. And I don't have to worry about anything. But, just to let you know that you have to have integrity. And I think that's one of the reasons that I've been able to be successful because, you do have to have integrity. If I was working on a case right now with, I don't know, a top celebrity, I would never even tell you that because it's very imminent. But just to let people know that it's really interesting that even in the world of celebrity, and even in the world of, fine fragrance, as with anything, I'm sure, when you develop a brand and you spend 20, 30 years developing your brand and your positioning and your marketing, and then suddenly you license it out, and then the licensee goes and puts your brand in not a proper distribution channel, it can really affect the brand. So, if you're a luxury fragrance and you've spent years with marketing and advertising and really positioning yourself as a high-level, very prestigious luxury brand, and then you see your brand stuck in a drugstore or a mass market store, that does terrible damage to your brand. And that's why lawsuits happen. And, they can be very, very, costly to make a lawsuit against that.
And I have to imagine these days a fair amount of that probably arrives in containers from other countries, right? So they just say, it's close enough. And you know what? We'll throw an extra letter in the name. They'll figure it out, right?
Yes, and that's a huge business because it's called diversion. So sometimes, it's so crazy. Sometimes what companies do is they have a forecast, and let's say the forecast is for 100,000 units over the year. And let's say they don't meet the forecast, but they've already, produced 100,000 units. So in order to make the budget, they have to say, okay, well, of the 100,000, we only shipped, 60,000. We left with 40,000 units. What do we do? So guess what they do? They take it out the back door and they ship it to some of these off-market price places. And suddenly they, oh my goodness, how did that get there? How did that get there? So sometimes they ship it out because it's diverted goods. And
I have to imagine that it is how shall I say, a lucrative business. Fair?
Oh, absolutely. The fragrance business is estimated about, depending on which resource and which research company you look at, between 38 billion or 68 billion, and somewhere in between, because whether it's high-end, medium, or mass, it's a huge, huge business, and the margins are very good. Imagine if you're paying $300 for a fragrance at the store. Well, they buy the fragrance at 40% off, or 40% off. So that fragrance costs about $250, and then you sell it to the store at about, $20 or $30. So the margins are huge.
Unbelievable. Pardon me. We're just up against time here, so I could tell you that you have been. You've increased my knowledge base a 1,000,000%. However, what is it they say? You told me everything I know, but you didn't tell me everything you know. Just, if that makes sense. So we're gonna load up a bus and we're gonna come down and we're gonna visit you. I promise. You are such a joy. And I would like to offer, maybe in a couple of months, maybe we can catch up and do this again if you don't mind.
I would love to, and by then I'll have my new brand out, and I would love to share that with you and share it with your listeners. And I just want to say thank you so much for having me and for asking such amazing questions. You really did a lot of research, Mr. Saturday Night, Mr. Mike. Thank you so much. I'm so impressed with the questions you asked because you really did a lot of work, and thank you for that.
Oh, it's completely my pleasure. Right? Thank you again so much. You've been a wonderful guest, a great joy, and we all send our love. Thank you so very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.